All right. So, hi, I'm Sharon Burton. This is the ISTC, and this is outstanding and awesome. We have a bunch of the contributors to the new book, Women in Technical Communication, in the audience today. So, this makes me just slightly nerving. It's a little nerve-wracking all the way through. But here I am. So, what is Women in Technical Communication? So, about 2.5 years ago, I it's a longer story here, but I'll give you the brief story. I had an idea through a variety of things. I had an idea that what would be really, really cool is if I put out a call for writers and I asked a bunch of the women in our field to write their story about their career. Why would that be interesting? Because if you look at the field in 1970, all of the statistics show us in 1970, the field of TechCom was 70% men and 30% women. And then between 1970 and 2000, 30 years, the field flipped. It became 30% men and 70% women. We also, in that time period, went from men who hand wrote things out and handed them to secretaries who typed them all up to a computer revolution and the internet and cell phones and wireless internets in our house and I mean, the world changed. If you think about it, we moved into and we currently live in this science fiction world. And so the more I thought about that, the more I thought, somebody's got to capture that history. We really need this history captured because we've moved from, write every little word you ever thought of about a product to audience appropriate, topic-based authoring and metadata and content strategy and I thought, at some point, people are going to be sitting say in movie theaters, for example, although that would be like awesome to think it's that fascinating, but we're going to be watching our history told like the history of the Black women who were the computers for the space program. Now, it's awesome that their history is being told, and it's awesome that the women who are still alive are having a chance to tell their story. But we need to tell our story. Like, we need to tell our stories because we didn't, we're not Steve Jobs. We're not, Bill Gates. We're not these people who wound up, building bajillion-dollar companies. But we are the people who showed up and did the work every single day. Like every single day. We showed up and we did the work and then we went home and we took care of the rest of our lives, just like women do all over the world. And if we don't tell our story, then who's going to tell our story? Right? The story of of this technology, of this history is more than the I'm going to sound a little pejorative. I don't mean to sound pejorative, but I don't know another way to phrase this. It's not just the men who made the big splash. It's all of the people who showed up and did the work and worked 50, 60 hours a day. And as one of the women writes in this book, who drove their car into a ditch on Christmas Eve because her boss insisted she come in to fix something, right? Like that. So I put out a call for writers. And when I put out the call for writers in March, about this time last year, um, I was pretty sure I was going to get 10 submissions, and they would all be terrible. They'd just be awful. They would just be like I don't know, functionally somebody's resume, or they'd be so badly written that no human could read them, or they'd be AI slob or whatever, right? Like, but I was pretty sure of it. And so this is where I'm going to start crying because it's where I always start crying. To my never-ending shock. And we've got a book release now and everything. To my never-ending shock, 68 women submitted amazing stories, like amazing stories. And some of them are women I know, some of them were women I've worked with, by committees, those kinds of things. Some of them are women I've never heard of, but I should have. Some of them are women. See, I told you I cry. I'm a dork. Some of them were women I've admired all of my career, and all of them are women I admire now because I know their story. So that's the story of the book. Now, that sounds so easy, right? You just collect these stories, women submit their stories, and you go, oh, yay, we've got our stories. That's wonderful. And then, we hand them over to the publisher, and the publisher goes, oh, yay, these stories, these are wonderful. No, it actually turned out to be a lot of work. So the call for writers closed on my birthday, as it turns out, June 30th. And then I read all the pieces and everybody got accepted, which I did not expect, because the stories were all good and are all important. So then I gave the writers time to add another 1,000 words. I asked originally for 2,000 words, and that was deliberate. I wanted to see, do you have a story that's at all interesting? And as I said, everybody did. So I gave them another 1,000 words. Go and flesh out your stories some more, because I bet you didn't tell a bunch of stuff. I bet you didn't. And sure enough, everybody did. They fleshed their story out and they added even more details, which was outstanding. And so that was good. And so then I did stuff while everybody's pieces had a chance to kind of cook. And then they got one last chance to go and look at their stories. And some people added more things, some people edited. It was all of that. So that was good. And then the publisher reached out to me and said, so what's the expected word count? And I said, well, so it turns out, I said, Mr. Publisher, we have 68 writers. He initially thought we'd get 20. I said, we have 68 writers. And if we go for 250 pages or 250 words per page, we've got, over 600 pages. But I'm sure that's not a problem, right? And he kind of got amazed. And so he came up with a book design that brought it down to 484 pages. Why is 600 pages a problem? Because in perfect binding, when you get up to that 500-page count, the perfect binding start, the technology just gets fussy. I mean, yes, you can get 1,000-page soft-bound books, 100%, but it starts to get dicey. And so, yeah. So then the publisher started working with and then he's like, well, we need pictures of everybody. I went, of course, we need pictures of everybody, of course. So then everybody had to get pictures of everybody. Okay, fine. So then he started working on the layout. And that was good because I thought, oh, good, my part is done, right? Like my part is done because my entire life has been this book for months. And then he said, oh, no, 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 I need to get everybody to take a look at their pieces now that we've laid them out. So then there was that, and everybody did. Although sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes it was like herding kittens, fun, playful kittens who chased each other's tails and fell asleep in their milk. I'm just saying, but you all did it, and I love you for it. And then somewhere around, I think it was November, the publisher was indexing everything. And he said he suddenly realized that what we needed was the bibliography of what everybody wrote. Because when you start looking at the cast of characters in this book, this is the history of our field. And we needed to have the bibliography. And since this history covers 60 years, the writer who with the oldest date that she started her career is 1964. So in 1964, she started her career. That's 60 years. How do I know that? Because I was born in 1961 and I'm older than 60, to my constant and never-ending surprise. So we had to reach out to all of the writers and get them to give us, if they had it, their bibliography. And we decided to go with chapters of books or books because, two reasons. If we went with journals, the list of references was going to be never ending. Remember how we got it under 500 pages? Yeah, it was not going to be anywhere near under 500 pages. And we had to verify everything. And verifying older journals, especially now that STC has shut down and a bunch of things have come and gone, verifying all of that would have been an absolute nightmare. So everybody had them, and not everybody had bibliography things, and that's perfectly fine too. Their value as a human being was perfectly fine if they didn't. But that was a lot of work. And then it's just been getting the final touches, finishing the indexing, finishing the layouts. We finally got the cover nailed down what, end of January. I think we finally got the cover nailed down. And I'm especially proud of the cover. It's based on a loose, terrible design I came up with. Please understand the initial draft that I came up with was really bad. But I wanted something that gave us the feeling of fabric, because fabric is the stuff that everything is built out of. The weaving of stories, I wanted something with that. I wanted something that communicated a signal traveling through space, if that makes sense. It's very metaphorical, I know, but I think we got it. And if you go take a look at Amazon.com and take a look at the cover, I think we got it. I still back here on my desk, I still have the mock-up that I printed and decided, yeah, this is it. Which I know doesn't look good, but it's only the mock-up. So, but oddly, I don't want to throw it away until I get my physical book on hand. I keep thinking, oh, I don't need this anymore. Well, no, I'll just, I'll just put it back. I'll just put it right there until I get the physical book. But I wanted this textile metaphor because one of the things that we know about women through prehistory, and we're starting, last year I read multiple books on weaving and textiles in archaeology because I did, because I knit and I'm interested in these things. It's evidence of weaving shows up like a long time, 100,000 years ago. And the metaphor in Western culture for weaving and storytelling, we weave stories, that kind of thing. And the idea of women sitting around weaving and talking and that metaphor just really resonated with me. And so that was the metaphor I wanted to go for. There will be other books in this series. And one of the things I liked about the metaphor that we've chosen is it will work for other books in the series. And for the other books in the series, we changed the color of the cover. Up to and including gays and lesbians and technology, where we can do a rainbow. We can make that weaving thing a rainbow, which will delight me to no end, absolutely to no end. I will be delighted about that. So that's kind of how it all went. I cannot tell you. Huge shout out. There are so many of the writers from the book that I'm looking at names that I can see. There's so many writers here, and I could spend forever gushing, but then I'll start crying again, which is, goofball for a woman who doesn't cry much. I've done a lot of crying here. But every one of these women have told a story that matters. It all matters. Some of us have created whole areas of our field, like that's how big our contribution was. Some of us documented the products in front of us and did a damn good job doing that, and that matters too. So I know from coaching a couple of the writers early in this project, a couple of the writers, because nobody knew who was in the book until recently. Obviously I knew and the publisher knew, but the writers did not know who else was in the book until very recently. And one of the writers, she was certain that her story wasn't going to be as interesting as other people's, even though she had no idea who was in the book. And I was like, I spent a lot of time coaching her that no, your story is important because it's your story. Our stories matter, even if we don't set the world on fire or make $1 billion, or our stories matter. And I'm hoping that when those two writers found out who the list was the list that they're included in, that they were proud. They should be proud of themselves. So I'm prattling. I feel like I'm prattling. I'm very uncomfortable talking about how wonderful everybody was. So would you all like me to read my piece? Would that be interesting to you?
Absolutely.
Of the pictures I can see, I see. Okay. All right. Now I'm really going to feel self-conscious. So, one of the things you like to think when you get older is that, it's all good now. I don't have any imposter syndrome. I'm very confident because I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of. And then something like this project comes up and it's like, oh yeah, no, no, I'm still 22 years old and haven't a clue what I'm doing. Nope, totally. All right. So For those of you who know Harry Chapin music, the title of my piece is taken from Chapin music. I'm a big Harry Chapin fan. I got to see him perform live years and years and years ago when I was a young military wife in Naples, Italy. But I'm a big Chapin fan. So my piece is called No Straight Lines Make Up My Life. It's a line from one of his songs. All right, let me get myself together. I'm such a dork. All right, never done this before. Here we go. The company I'm working for is looking for a tech writer. Is that something you're interested in? My friend from the computer science department and I were having coffee on campus at the University of California, Riverside, where I was working on my PhD in cultural anthropology and he was working on his master's. I don't know. What does it pay? I said. $10 an hour, he said. I'd love to be a tech writer, I said, having no idea what that was, but knowing that was great money for me. I was a single mom. My son and I were desperately poor and had been for years. I didn't know anything about tech writing, but it was 1992. I was almost 31 years old. I knew how to use a computer and I would figure out the rest. I'd do tech writing until I got bored and then I'd do something else. From this, my career was born. Clueless but committed. When I started that job part-time, I had no idea what I was doing. It was the writable CD-ROM industry, and I knew nothing about the technology. Truthfully, almost no one knew about the technology because it was brand new with brand new standards. The owner of the company participated in creating the Rockridge standard, which was named after the town in the movie Blazing Saddles. We were breaking ground as a young startup in a dilapidated building in a fading downtown. The tech office was several large rooms with tables, and we all worked on whatever computer station was available when you came in for the day. The rooms were sorted by operating system. That was the Unix room. This, much smaller, was the PC room. That one over there was the next Mac other room. We had a gaming room, which my 13-year-old loved when he came to work with me. He wasn't much younger than most of the men I worked with. As the only woman in the tech office, some stereotypes had to be dispelled. Yep, I make terrible coffee. Nope, I won't take notes for meetings. Nope, I won't be answering the phone. Yep, I can't run the photocopier any better than you. My inner geek. I discovered the community of geeks, and I fit. For example, somehow we finagled a Sun Unix station on loan from Sun. It arrived in a literal large wooden crate. The IT manager asked if I wanted to help unbox it, and of course I did. And by unbox, Oliver meant that we would open the computer and pull the boards. I asked questions about all the parts on all the boards, and Oliver explained them to me. My curiosity for everything was accepted as natural and expected. Eventually, as the company grew, I moved into full-time salaried and became the docs manager with 3 people under me. I still didn't know what good docs were or how to get them, but I read everything I could find and learned as much as I could from the much more experienced staff reporting to me. Decision time. And then I got laid off. It was obviously coming because our paychecks started to be late and sometimes bounced. People with credit cards were asked to put company purchases on their personal cards for reimbursement later. The company stopped paying payroll taxes, and at one point the doors were chained until the company caught up. A little bit before I got laid off, my long-term boyfriend committed suicide, and I had taken a year-long leave of absence from my PhD program. Follow the money. The layoff forced my hand into some hard choices. Did I want to go back to my PhD program, write my dissertation, and starve some more with no job prospects on the horizon? I knew I didn't want to be a college professor because I knew I'd be terrible at it. Or did I want to follow the money? I discovered I liked money more than I wanted a PhD after my name. I applied for technical writer jobs. My son and I were still living in student housing, so our rent was very low, but we had 4 more months before the leave of absence was over, and we would lose the low-cost housing. I found a job 30 Southern California miles away in Orange County. It paid more than I ever imagined making, enough that I decided to buy a house. I wanted a place that was mine and my son's, that didn't depend on attending college, a place that was stable and reliable, that was home. So I did, and when the university and I parted ways in July of that year, we moved into my house where I've lived ever since. At the time, I was the only woman I knew who bought a house on her own, not as the result of a divorce settlement or a parent dying. I'm still proud of that, and apparently so proud I'm getting teary, which is a dorky thing, but there I am. I bounced jobs and contracts in many technologies for a while, learning everything I could. I connected with my local chapter of the Society for Technical Communication and made many friends. I served on the local board in different positions, gave presentations, and generally threw myself into technical communication with the same intensity I had in the graduate work. I wasn't afraid of technology and was always learning more so I could be better at what we did. I hand coded RTF files for WinHelp and learned RoboHelp, FrameMaker, and early PDF. I pulled network cables under the carpets in my house and managed my network. My son grew up and moved away. I set up a wireless network. And then I had some ideas. One day, as I was driving to a contract client site, I mulled that there had to be a better way to make a living as a contractor. I wanted something more. I wanted to have a company where contractors were treated well, where money was in the open, and everyone could do good work. The words Anthrobytes Consulting appeared, and I knew I had a name if I could figure out how to organize the picture in my head. Did I know how to run a business when I started? Nope. Like so much in my life, I figured it out as I went. When I started, I didn't know what a purchase order was. I didn't know about planning projects. I made mistakes. I learned from them. I made other mistakes, and so on. I refer to that time period as earning my combat MBA. I spent the next 6 years or so as CEO running Anthrobytes Consulting as a full-service technical writing outsourcing shop. I worked with a stable of contractors, taking projects as they showed up. We also provided on-site training on the tools used in our field for clients who needed that. We won local STC awards and Apex awards for our work. All of us worked from home offices, a bonus I used when I talked to potential clients. The client wasn't paying for the overhead of an office. We used my patio table as the staff meeting area and had a great time creating docs for companies that mostly don't exist anymore for products that no one remembers. IESTC begins. I was getting tired of driving 30 Southern California miles to the Orange County STC chapter meetings every month. The meetings were always a bright spot. It was lovely seeing friends, but sitting in traffic was killing me. I decided my area needed an STC chapter. With the help of a lot of people in the OC-STC chapter, I started the Inland Empire STC chapter. I served in roles in that chapter for 5 years. University of California, Riverside Extension. During this time, I sat in the dark one night with a glass of wine. I was frustrated by the poor docs I was seeing in the world. There was no reason for bad docs that checked a box on the delivery list, but helped no one. As I thought that over, I realized if I wanted docs in the world to be better, it was up to me to create that solution. I needed to teach people how to be better at this important job. The only program in Southern California at the time was in Orange County, and I didn't want to make the 90-minute drive each way to teach in that program. So I called the University of California Riverside Extension office and booked an appointment with the dean. In that meeting, I proposed we create a certificate program for technical writing. Over a 6-month period, we created the program, established classes and syllabi, and started the program. I taught many of the classes, and other IESTC people also taught. We moved the entire program online in the early 2000s, long before it was easy to deliver online asynchronous training. The walls fell down. The morning of September 11th, 2001, a writer and I were supposed to meet with a potential new client to talk through a project they wanted. The towers started falling at about 7:30 a.m. West Coast time, as I remember, and essentially took my company with them. By the end of that day, all our clients had canceled their contracts. We were done. My household shifted to being heavily dependent on my second husband's income while I scrambled to find personal contracts in a dark economy. Over the next year or two, his resentment angrily paced the house. He'd never been happy I ran a business. He saw that as too much risk, although he enjoyed spending the money. The marriage failing wasn't a direct result of the pressure of my reduced income. The existing fractures brought the marriage down. When he moved out, I was left with an empty house. I decided I would work contracts and create the life I wanted. Was it going to be easy? Not really, no, but I could figure it out. I worked, bought furniture, taught classes at UC Riverside Extension, and supported the IESTC. Next steps. Over the next years, I landed a salary job at a company in Orange County and met and married my third husband. I did not excel at that job. I was one of 2 women managers in a large technical office in a bro culture. At one point, my male boss felt comfortable sharing that the men in the meetings I was in didn't like the sound of my voice. To try to fit in, I started pitching my voice low and softer when I had to talk. I don't think the sound of my voice was the issue. I drove to work crying and I drove home crying. It was a terrible fit. It was time for something else. I started looking for the next job. UCR calls. About this time, a professor in the engineering department at the University of California, Riverside reached out. We'd interacted at various professional meetings over the last few years and occasionally shared emails. Our phone call went like this. Sharon, we have a problem. We're graduating engineers who can't communicate, Tom said. Well, I laughed. You're certainly the only program in the country doing that. Everyone else is graduating engineers who communicate perfectly. Out of that conversation, I started teaching technical communication for engineers, a required class for some of the engineering majors on campus. The department listed it as an upper division engineering class, Engineering 180. Because of the job I hated, I couldn't commit to teaching 2 nights a week, so a friend and I decided we'd split the class, each teaching 1 night a week. The department explained the problems they were seeing with the engineers in their senior projects and what they thought the gaps were. Because of the nature of the engineering class, we were also required to teach a 3-hour lab 1 night a week. Over dinner, she and I put together a class structure that addressed those gaps. We still teach that basic structure 20 years later. We started with 48 students in 2 labs, 4 quarters a year. 20 years later, we have 120 to 168 students in a class across 5 to 7 labs, 4 quarters a year, with the expectation we'll grow to nearly 400 students across 16 labs by the early 2030s. Our course is required for most engineering majors. We've been fully online since 2023 and expect to continue teaching until we're 90 years old. It's just too much fun to stop. I stopped teaching at Extension during about the time this class started. Even for me, that was too much. Madcap Times, a young company in San Diego making a new TechCom tool advertised for a product evangelist. I got the job. I worked with amazing, smart people taking a new product to market, traveling to trade shows, and helping drive the direction of the products. I loved that job. We were taking on the big players in the TechCom tools field and making real progress. The progress was solid. The product was solid. I helped design some of the tools. I was making a real difference in my field. When the economy started to falter in late 2007, I created a webinar program. I knew that people being laid off wanted to get their skills up to date as fast as possible, so I created a webinar program that never mentioned our products. I sold it to the CEO as a goodwill program. When those people got jobs, they would remember who was there that helped. I reached out to my network and asked people to freely give their time to train people on topics laid off people needed to know about. I repurposed topics from teaching for my webinars. The program was wildly successful. We had an average of 150 people signing up for each webinar. Sadly, future goodwill was not enough to support sales today. I got laid off, but put on a retainer to continue the webinars for another year. It is hard to lose a job you just love. And then the sad times. I bounced contracts again, working in the tools and processes area of TechCom. I was traveling for a client when my husband developed a back problem. It took several months for a diagnosis, stage 4 renal cell cancer. With the removal of the kidney and treatment, a life expectancy of 30 months. He was 49 and I was 52. Wow. Sorry. I am surprised. Excuse me. This was the hardest part of my life, much harder than being a poor single mom. I couldn't work contracts and teach and care for a dying husband on my own. I needed a salaried job. I found a remote job as content manager, tools manager under a wonderful woman working for an enterprise level healthcare software company. I worked East Coast hours and taught in the evenings. Critically, we had health insurance mostly paid for by my employer. Now at this distance, I know he also most likely had early onset Parkinson's, which explains the hell that we lived in. He started hallucinating about 9 months into treatment. His personality changed and he was often hostile and nasty and sometimes violent. He didn't understand I was working and we couldn't just go to Target for an extended shopping trip mid-morning. He would melt down like a toddler. He stopped sleeping much. He set fire to the electric stove. I had a friend who cared for him when I taught at night. The rest of the time was me balancing working and caregiving. Eventually, he went in-home hospice, which doesn't provide help to the caregivers. I kept working for a roof over our head and medical insurance. I hid the car keys and turned the stove off at the breaker and tried to manage his inexplicable rages. It was a terrible time. I don't know how I worked at all, but I did. I figured it out because there's simply no other options. When he was finally relieved, when he finally died, I was relieved, which sounds awful. But he wasn't lucid for the last 9 months of his life. He was not the man I married, and it wasn't what he wanted. He was most afraid of losing his mind, and that's what happened. Rebuilding the next life. I continued working for the healthcare software company, but after a reorganization, I wasn't happy with the redefined. I'm sorry? Oh, somebody said something, sorry. I wasn't happy with the redefined role. I started quietly looking for another job. After a year, I landed at a late-stage startup cybersecurity company as the content strategist. It was a great job, and I did work I was proud of, making excellent money and solving interesting problems. After 2 years, I got laid off. Another heartbreak and back to contracts. During this time, I also met a man, and we slowly became, as my granddaughter put it, romantic interests. I married husband number 4 in 2021. It seems I collect husbands the way some women collect teacups. I often say I've lived a life of magical events. Technical communication opened doors I didn't know existed and provided a satisfying career with great financial rewards. I raised myself out of poverty and created a comfortable, stable life. Every day, I'm aware how magically my life has worked out, despite being a dork. As I write this, I'm working a long-term contract doing content strategy for a large semiconductor company, which makes me so happy. I love content strategy. It solves real content problems that impact the bottom line. The problems are always interesting and customers see real benefits. I'm at an age where most people think about retiring. As I've gotten older, I've been concerned about ageism and experienced it, as most people my age are, but I'm not at all ready to consider retirement. I may slow down in 10 years and just teach, but I still love what I do and the problems I solve. There's just so many interesting projects yet to do. I said I'd do this until I got bored. I'm not bored yet. Wow, that's harder than I thought. Man, okay. Well, now if I start asking the other writers to read their pieces, I can point to this and go, yeah, this is hard. You're going to be shocked at how hard this is. All right, so that's my piece. That's my story. I chose to be quite personal in my story. I believe that by sharing who I am as a person, I connect humanly with people. This is part of why I'm a very good anthropologist, because I will connect. I am very open to sharing who I am with people. In no way, shape, or form did I ask any of the writers to do that, because there is no wrong or right way to tell your story. Every woman told her story the way that she felt that her story should be told. When I edited, I was very, very light on the editing, because I think that we women in technology have had enough of people changing our voices to suit what they think our voices should be. Yeah, I think we're all pretty full up with that. So I was really, really light on the editing. I changed things. I asked for changes, and it was a conversation. I asked for changes if and only if there was confusion, because we all know this one. You write what makes sense, and then somebody else reads it and goes, yeah, this part right here, it doesn't, I'm not in your head and I don't know what you meant. So help me out. And so some of the women told very personal stories. Some women told less personal stories. And I am very proud of the stories that everyone told. Everyone should tell her story the way that she feels her story is best, and she should share or not whatever it is she wishes to share. I shared a lot about, I shared probably more than I expected about my late husband dying, because one of the things all of us who are partnered are probably going to join the Widows Club, and it's a terrible club. And I don't want any of us to join it. But that's just statistically, that's just what's going to happen. And pretending that that is not part of our experience as women, I think, I think would have taken away something. And for those women who in their pieces are in fact they're also part of the Widows Club and they chose not to share that, in no way is that judgment. Again, these are decisions I make for me and they're the right decisions for me, but that doesn't make them the right decision for anybody else. But it's the truth statistically for all of us. My best friend is also a widow. And she and I were talking over dinner. She joined us for dinner on Friday night. We were talking, and I turned to my husband and I said, yeah, this is why women friendships matter so much, because you're going to die pretty much, which engendered a lot of laughter and joking about that. But at some level, all of us know, all of us women know that our female friends are the ones who are going to get us into old age. We hope our men will, but statistically, that's not the case. So I'm rambling now. All right. So are there any questions? I'm not looking at the comments. Should I be looking at the comments or is somebody else looking at the comments who can help me know what I might need to know about? Because I'm
Well, I
still in
think
a space where it was weird to have read my piece.
that was amazing, Sharon. Thank you so much. You should look at the comments because it is so overwhelmingly positive. Although it might make you cry all over again because the comments are so beautiful. So yeah, has anyone, Kit? Hi, Kit. It's lovely to see you. You've got your hand up.
Oh, yeah. Is it okay if I just say something?
Do it. Do it, Kit.
I
And hi, Kit. I haven't seen you in
Hi,
forever.
I love your hair, by the way. That
I
is so
just
cute.
got it. I just got it repurpled on Friday. I'm so pleased with it.
I just want to say, Sharon, thank you. I think I speak for everyone who contributed to this when I say thank you for asking us our stories. And thank you for hurting all of us cats who are
Kittens,
such,
kittens.
or kittens, who are professional writers and editors ourselves, but writing memoir stuff is a lot harder, I will say, than writing the stuff we do every day. And you did such a phenomenal job. You are a fabulous project manager. You are a fabulous cat herder and encourager and stuff like that. And I've known you for decades, like since the 90s, right? So
Weird, but
I
true.
I love you and I am so thankful for you and I'm so thankful that you are in our profession. So that's all
Oh,
I wanted to say.
oh, thank you. This is not about how wonderful Sharon is, though. Truly, truly. Look, after husband number four, you're very clear, just like what your list of wonderful and not wonderfuls are. But you all are just amazing. And I am glancing through the comments, and thank you all for being so kind. Um, I I think when you and the book, by the way, the book is available now for pre-order. The ebook is available now for pre-order. If you go to xmlpress.net, you can get the ebook, pre-order the ebook for $20. So do that. That goes away. I, I forget. I posted about all of this over the weekend, and then I sat and knit and baked bread and had quiet time. So maybe I don't remember all the details I should. But you absolutely want to pre-order this. When you start reading it, it's not the kind of book where you're going to sit down probably and read it start to finish like all at once because you can't wait to see how it all turns out. But I think it's going to be a book where you read. Oh yeah, it's available worldwide. I just saw the comment. It's available worldwide. Go, go, go order. I think it's one of these books where you're going to read some and then put it down and think, and then read some more later and then put it down and think. And I I think our generation, those of us at this point in our career, I think we are going to really hear themes that resonate. The theme, we all had a very similar career. We all did different things, but we all had a similar career. I think for the generation coming up behind us, I think that they are going to at times be shocked and horrified at some of the same themes that they are still living, that are still happening. I wish it was a little different. We here's the reality. Women broke the trail for us. We have done a lot to break the trail for those coming behind us. And every generation has an obligation, I think, to do the work of making it easier for the generation coming up behind them. We did a lot, to be honest. I mean, let's face facts. I am never the only woman in the room now. So much of my early career, I was the only woman in the room. And that's true for many of us. That's not happened for me except by random chance. That's not happened for me in quite some time. And I don't think that's going to happen for the women coming up behind us. I'll give you something that to hold you, to like give you hope. When I started teaching Engineering 180, 20 years ago, the only women in the room were me and Bonnie Graham, me and my co-teacher. We were the only women in the room, 48 people plus us. Out of the 50 people, we were the entire sum of the women in the room. And for most of the students in the room, we were the first time they had seen a woman at the front of the room in their engineering program. Adjunct. We were adjunct. We are adjunct. We continue to be adjunct. But that's it. We were the ones at the front of the room, and we were the first time they'd seen women in their engineering program in the front of the room. And so there's that. So now, 20 years later, about 25% of the students are women. And the day that 50% of the students are women, I may collapse onto the floor and sob for a while. I have a granddaughter who could be an engineer if she wanted. Her interests are elsewhere right now. She just turned 21. She's on the spectrum. She's brilliant, and she's sorting out what it is she wants to be. And if she wanted to be an engineer, she could be. And of course, I want her to be whatever makes her happy, you know. But the idea that when our first writer, when the first writer who gave us the earliest date, let's put it that way, the writer who gave us the earliest date, 1964, my granddaughter in 1964 could have become an engineer, but it would have been hard. And for a young woman on the spectrum, I don't know that she could have done that level of hard. I mean, obviously some women did, but it's like one more thing to fight past, right? Knowing that my granddaughter, if she decides that that's what she wants to do, will get support all the way through her education, and can look at women like us and go, no, they did it. I can do that. I can do that. We've done that. That's a big deal. Yeah, another Temple Grandin. And of course, I want to go smash things at the thought of my granddaughter being mistreated for anything about what makes her a wonderful human being. But it could be I'm slightly protective about my granddaughter, perhaps. All right, so other questions. Thomas, thank you for putting the link up to the book in the chat for the XML Press store. Thank you very, very much.
Would you like to say something about the next book?
Yes. So Call for Writers is out now. Because my life is not sufficiently busy, I've decided to do marketing for one book and then we kick off the next book. Because I just don't have enough to do, I guess. I don't know. But the next book, Call for Writers, the book is Women in Engineering. I am looking for women in all flavors of engineering. I'm hoping that we get more than 10 bad pieces this time. Although the amazing stories that we got for this book makes me think that maybe we will get more than 10 bad stories for the next book. But it's Women in Engineering. I sent you the link. No, I don't have the link handy. Shame on me. If somebody would like to find that quickly and get that posted, that would be awesome. I would love that. So it's the same thing. I'm looking for women to tell their stories, women who have retired or near retirement age, to tell their story of what their career was like. They can be as self-disclosive as they wish. But I'm looking for that. I am a little concerned, as is the publisher, that we're going to get flooded with hundreds of pieces. And there's a part of me that just goes, yeah, you know what? If that happens, we'll figure that out when we get there. If we get hundreds of really good stories, we'll figure that out. I think we'll be okay. I, one of the themes about my life is we'll just figure that out well, I bet I can figure that out. I bet I can. Karen, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you for sharing. That was a great story, and it just leaves me with a big question. Were were there any things that really surprised you about some of the things that came out via the stories? Um, I was wondering if you sat back and said, I didn't know that, or was it really
Oh,
like
wow.
that? I mean, it just seems like you've got stories from people who were both, um, not both, but I guess doing a variety of different things in the field. The field is not one dimensional, and there's lots of different
Right.
flavors of the field. And I was just wondering if anything leapt out at you that you were like, what?
I
Seriously?
Yeah, I was surprised at how many of us come from a
Any of us.
background, how many of us come from a background similar to mine. Karen, you come from a background, working class background too. You mentioned in your story, a lot of us do. The ones who contributed in that book came from a working class background, and that surprised me. Imposter syndrome never really goes away, but I was surprised how many of us come from humble beginnings, if you will. We've got, I will tell you, I'll tell you a story that we didn't know that we now know because of this book. There's a woman in Finland named Tudy. I'm probably not saying it properly because it's Finnish. But it's the only posthumous piece that I allowed because two of her former students wrote the piece and submitted it. And I started reading and I went, oh, I don't want a posthumous piece. I mean, I really want us, the point here is to tell our own story. But then I started reading the story and I realized there is this woman in Finland who, for all intents and purposes, created the entire field of tech com. She did it all by herself. She just did. She started teaching it at the college and started teaching and started set up a program that masters and PhDs. And then those people went out in the world. Did I know about this? I did not. Now I do. And I'm still shocked that our field did not know about this because I'm assuming if our field knew about this, I probably would have known because I'm barely plugged into our field. Um, I was surprised that I did not. We got some stories from the writers in India, which is awesome. We got a Mexico. I'm still surprised that we did not get more stories from Central and South America. I am convinced there is a stealth technical communication industry in Central and South America. I'm convinced of this, and I've been convinced of this for 20 years. I think it's a group of people, probably women, who are doing the work, who don't know they're doing the work. Does this one sound familiar? An awful lot of us had no idea we were doing tech com when we started doing tech com. But I am convinced. Yeah, Hannah says they've got an office in Buenos Aires. I'm convinced that there is a large population. It's not possible. All these businesses have policies and procedures that need to be created. It's not possible that there isn't a huge tech industry or tech writing industry in that part of the world. It's not possible. Um, yeah.
Well, it
So
is possible, though, that those people who are in it, A, don't know each other, B, are working alone, just like most of us did, and C, there haven't been venues to share information. If you think about going to a conference, typically what you're seeing is the end of the line of someone's thinking, whether that's a
yeah.
thinking about um, theory or history or practice, you're seeing their kind of end of line thinking, and that's their best shot at that. But
Yep.
that
And
isn't, you were trying to uncover, which I thought was really cool.
And you're seeing at a conference, you're seeing the end result of somebody who got the information about the conference, who looked at that and said, I'm the kind of person who can go to that. That's a
Mm,
big step, right? I'm the kind of person who can go to that, goes to their boss or has the financial resources on their own. That's a big step. And
right.
then goes to a place where they probably don't know anyone. Another giant step, right? Not everybody is like me. I'm perfectly happy to go anywhere and talk to anybody because I'm annoying like that, but not absolutely most people are not like me. And I mean, and then so the people who get to a conference, they're a special kind of demographic, and the world has killed off an awful lot of our conferences now. A lot. So
And that
yeah,
is really true. And plus the conferences for people who have been practicing professional and technical communication have been separate from conferences for academics in the field. And I was wondering if the academics were responsive to your call for papers.
we got quite a few academics. I am delighted about that because, obviously, Karen, obviously at Carnegie Mellon, but we got a lot. University of Washington, I think I just messed up the school's name, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. Texas, Carnegie, Karen, I think you were the only one who repped Carnegie Mellon, I think. I'm pretty sure. But we got a fair number of people, and I'm delighted because the practitioners and the academics we should work together more. There's always been this weird tension. There's always this weird, it happens in anthropology as well, this tension between practitioners and the academics. But the reality is we got to work together because we got to work together. And and I was delighted. And what was really interesting was some of the academic women didn't start out expecting to be an academic. They started out kind of just cruising, stumbled into TechCom maybe by maybe finding a job while they were in college that paid moderately well, and then decided they liked the field and went back and got masters and PhDs, which I thought was awesome because one of the things I tell all young people is you don't have to know what you're going to study to go to college. Go to community college and just start taking classes. Just take classes. That's how I got my college by starting in a community college. Just go and take classes. Find the thing that lights you up, the thing that, at 2 in the morning, you're still up going, no, 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 but wait, I have one more thought. I have one more thought. Do that. Find that thing. And then do that thing, whatever that thing is. The world needs more people who get excited at 2 in the morning about their thing. And yeah, do that.